Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
Welcome to Caribbean Perspective. So glad you can join us. The story that takes the lead in today's edition for Friday, 25th October 2024, and brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. British American Insurance Company Limited and CLICO policyholders lose discrimination claim against Trinidad and Tobago. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's a service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Welcome back. British American Insurance Company Limited and CLICO policyholders have lost their discrimination claim against the Trinidad and Tobago government over the 2009 bailout of CL Financial. CCJ President Justice Adrian Saunders on Tuesday, October 22, 2024, delivered a summary of the court's ruling. Zane Romulus of the DBS News World has the details.
The CCJ's decision comes after a 15-year period during which policyholders across the Eastern Caribbean, including many in St. Lucia, have been seeking fair treatment and financial recovery since the collapse of British American Insurance and CLICO in 2009. The British American and CLICO policyholders group filed a lawsuit with the CCJ on July 13, 2021, seeking payment of more than $800 million from the government of Trinidad and Tobago owed to policyholders. Bacall's attorneys argue that the Trinidad and Tobago government's actions discriminated against OECS policyholders based on nationality. The court found that the measures were properly within the state's exercise of governmental authority and were aimed at mitigating the effects of the collapse on the local economy.
The court noted that if the claimant's arguments were correct, it would mean that the defendant would have been responsible for bailing out all BICO policyholders in other Caribbean territories. The court found that it could not have been within the contemplation of the framers of the RTC that the member states in such circumstances would be obliged to compensate all BICO policyholders in all CARICOM states for all their loss and damage. The court accepted that this is an objective and reasonable justification for the alleged difference in treatment of the companies.
The case affects nearly 2,000 registered policyholders from St. Lucia and the Eastern Caribbean. Many of these policyholders have reported experiencing financial hardship and emotional trauma since British American Insurance and CLICO's collapse, with businesses also suffering significant losses.
The court considered there was no obligation to extend any relief to institutions outside of the defendant member state, and therefore no right in the claimants to obtain the relief they sought. The claim was dismissed, and the parties were ordered to bear their own costs.
The CCJ's ruling has far-reaching implications for insurance regulation, policyholder protection, and the interpretation of CARICOM treaties in cross-border financial services. It also sets a precedent for handling similar cases involving regional financial institutions in the future. For the DBS News World, Zane Romulus reporting.
St. Lucia's top law enforcement officer says the Royal St. Lucia Police Force has made rapid progress in tackling serious criminal activities since taking command 6 weeks ago. Acting Police Commissioner Vern Gard points to the seizure of multiple illegal weapons, including 9 firearms, in just over 2 weeks as evidence of the police force's renewed momentum under his leadership. Stanley Lucian of the HTS News Force reports.
I have embarked on constructing a proper plan for crime control. We've also done 2 separate steering committees to ensure that our national policing module is in place and our national policing problem-solving approach is in place. We also ensured that We step up the amount of patrols that we do on a daily basis. We've also moved aggressively to intercept firearms and ammunitions. We also ensure that we embark on training for the officers, and all of these things are done within a month and a half period. So essentially, 6 months is a lot of time to manage some of the major issues that we've had in the Royal St. Lucia Police Force.
Acting Commissioner Gard says notable successes have been registered against illegal guns and ammunition possession.
The Royal St. Lucia Police Force, over the past month and a half, has moved aggressively to manage serious crime, to the point where we have made recoveries of over 100 rounds of ammunition within this respective period. And also, we have made significant headway in intercepting firearms and firearm implements around the island. Within the last month, we have already intercepted 9 firearms within 18 days, which translates to 1 firearm every other day.
When he assumed the leadership of the police force less than 50 days ago, the acting commissioner stated that the target was to turn the crime situation around in 6 months. He insists that the 6-month target is achievable.
Within the last 6 weeks, I've had the opportunity to meet with almost 500 officers. So that is just a testament of what can be done within a short period, as long as there is the commitment. We have done a lot of activities in regards to serious firearm offenses, where we have actually intercepted more than 9 firearms within 18 days. That simply translates to 1 firearm every other day. All of these matters are being placed before the court in the normal judicial process, and we just must allow the judiciary and the judicial process to take its natural course.
Over the past year and a half, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force received more than 40 new vehicles and other resources expected to bolster its crime-fighting capabilities. Stanley Lucien for the HTS News Force.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick, in association with our friends at
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Positive news from the International Monetary Fund as it relates to the growth of Barbados' GDP. CBC's Crystal Hoyt is in Washington covering the IMF World Bank annual meetings and filed this report.
The International Monetary Fund has projected that Barbados' real GDP will grow by 3.9% in 2024 and 3.0% in 2025. This is indicated in the World Economic Outlook report just released here in Washington, D.C. at the IMF and World Bank annual meetings. While the numbers reflect a slowing of the growth rate, they're still above Barbados' historical norm. From an international perspective, the IMF forecast is for global growth to hold steady at 3.2% in 2024 to 2025, a projection it describes as stable yet underwhelming. As it relates to inflation, IMF trumpeted that the battle against inflation is almost won. Pierre-Olivier Godesha, IMF's chief economist, says that after headline inflation peaked at 9.4% in 2022, it is now projected to fall to 3.5% by the end of 2025.
Now, the decline in inflation without a global recession is a major achievement. Much of that disinflation can be attributed to the unwinding of the unique combination of supply and demand shocks that caused the inflation in the first place, together with improvements in labor supply due to immigration in many advanced countries. But monetary policy played a decisive role, keeping inflation expectations anchored.
Despite the good news on inflation, the IMF warns on rising risks.
These downside risks include an escalation in regional conflicts, especially in the Middle East, which could pose serious risks for commodity markets. Policy shifts toward undesirable trade and industrial policies could also significantly lower output.
To mitigate this and strengthen growth, the IMF believes policymakers must shift gears and focus on three key areas: monetary policy, fiscal policy, and growth-enhancing reform. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Crystal Hoyt, CBC News.
Trinidad and Tobago's government's effort to restart the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery is moving forward. This from Acting Prime Minister and Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Stuart Young. He was contributing to debate on the 2025 budget in the Senate on Wednesday. TTT's Mahalia Joseph Wharton reports.
On Inca Energy LLC's
Acting Prime Minister and Minister of Energy and Energy Industries Stuart Young reminded that the evaluation committee appointed by the cabinet had shortlisted 3 potential operators from a pool of international bidders. He said it came after a rigorous review process by Scotia Capital and the cabinet appointed committee.
They did their own exercise and came down to three companies that they think have the possibility of restarting. CRO Consortium is one, Inca Energy LLC is another, and Wando PLC. Unfortunately, as is the modus operandi of the irresponsible persons in our society, the attacks on international potential operators does affect them because their brand is important.
The opposition has questioned the credibility of the selected companies. The claims were dismissed by the acting Prime Minister, who described their claims as baseless and damaging.
In all of these companies, there is no link to Jindal. The other ridiculous submission made was that one company here is sanctioned by OFAC, by the United States, and that company is Ocala Services Limited. Mr. President, I have here, OFAC renews its sanction list every few days. The most recent one we could have gotten yesterday is dated the 17th of this month. And there is clearance from OFAC.
He emphasized that none of these companies have any connection to Jindal Steel and Power, a claim previously circulated.
Do not try to scuttle the government's attempts to restart the refinery. Do not attack every individual who doesn't fit your narrative. A responsible government, and even those who may think their governments in waiting, would want what's best for Trinidad and Tobago. The refinery process will continue. We have 3 who are being subject to due diligence. The cabinet has taken a decision. The evaluation team has been given the green light to enter into conversation and negotiation with all 3.
This is the 3rd international bid for restart of the refinery. The process now moves into the negotiation phase, with the final decision expected in the coming months. Mahalia Joseph Wharton, TTT News.
Dawn News English reports Haitian gangs are escalating attacks in areas outside their control, according to Maria Isabel Salvador, head of the UN's Haiti mission. She warned the United Nations Security Council that the situation is worsening, with gangs like Viv and Sam spreading violence across the capital and nearby regions. Despite promises of over 3,000 troops, only a few have arrived, and funding remains short.
The violence has overwhelmed Haiti's security forces, with residents pleading for more protection. Over 4,200 people fled their homes last week, many seeking shelter in schools and churches. Prime Minister Gary Connell has recalled police and soldiers from VIP duties to combat gangs, but resources are limited. The conflict has displaced about 700,000 people and severely impacted food supplies, leaving over 5 million Haitians facing hunger, with thousands nearing famine. Rising tensions between Haiti's government leaders are furthering eroding public trust, adding to the crisis.
Telesur English reports Venezuelan president invited to attend BRICS summit, making it historic.
We're arriving at this historic summit. It is the very first time that a president of Venezuela has been invited to attend a BRICS summit of heads of state. It is already a historic event that a Venezuelan president attends a summit. We have already participated at the ministerial level, like foreign ministers, ministers of economy, ministers of communication, of culture. We are now already part of this machinery, of this design of the multicentric and pluripolar world.
The Venezuelan president highlighted the possibility that the countries with the largest oil reserves in the world join a great economic development project.
We always thought about the possibility of being part of the great economic development project, a project of cooperation, the countries that have the largest oil reserves in the world. That is to say, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Venezuela. And in this space, that is the epicenter of the new world, we have already met. We are the four great oil-producing countries of the world, and Venezuela comes to humbly offer its contribution on the basis of economic autonomy, of domestic development, an economic project that requires a high level of investment.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.